Our top story this half an hour, the impeachment inquiry. Acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney reportedly asked budget office officials whether there was a legal justification for withholding military aid to Ukraine. The discussions apparently taking place over email in August. Joining me right now is a special advisor to the president, Tony Sayegh, back at work, now working on the impeachment inquiry. Good to see you.
Maria, great to be with you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Sure.
And this is, you're now working on the impeachment inquiry at the White House once again. So happy to have you here. What do you want to say about this email situation that we have that Mick Mulvaney was asking about the aid?
Look, it's very routine for the Office of Management and Budget to have conversations with the agencies about foreign aid. In this particular case, it was Ukraine. But these seem to me to be very normal courses of action, a normal process. There was, as we even learned in the article in the Washington Post, legal consensus throughout the entire process that holding up the aid was certainly justified. But this goes to a more central issue, Maria. We have created this impression that somehow holding up foreign aid in and of itself is a wrongdoing. That's untrue. We hold it up many times. Presidents have that obligation to review and make sure that countries we're giving foreign aid to are adhering to certain standards, are adhering to certain concerns the United States has. And in the case of Ukraine, I think it's very well documented. This is a country that even its most affectionate advocates who testified in the last 2 weeks admit has a history of corruption, has a history of issues with certain oligarchs. And for the President of the United States to ask that we don't just send blank checks, that we review things, especially in the relate to corruption. In the case of Ukraine in particular, too, the President's been very clear about his interest in burden sharing from our European allies.
Yeah.
He felt the same way about NATO, by the way. So these are all very routine things that the President has a right, in fact, an obligation to review.
Well, people are wondering if it's all so cut and dry and so clear-cut that the President did something wrong, then why is the process changed and the rules of this impeachment inquiry sort of made up as you go along? I mean, yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures, I spoke with New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. She joined me on Sunday Morning Futures about the impeachment process and her ability to take on Adam Schiff as a result. Watch this. You took on Adam Schiff. What was that like? Give us your sense of what just went on there in that exchange.
Well, the American people could see firsthand how partisan this process has been from the start. Adam Schiff, these rules that we were conducted under were totally unprecedented. Members were not able to yield time to other members, which we're allowed to do on the House floor, we're allowed to do in every other committee except under Adam Schiff's regime of secrecy. So the American public, they have outpoured support for me. They want to hear from members of Congress, and I'm proud to have asked some of the best questions of the impeachment proceeding.
In fact, one of her first questions was, did you meet with the whistleblower? Yeah. And that became a really important question, as an Emerson College poll shows support for impeachment has slipped from 48% in October now to 43% in November. Tony, will Democrats keep this fight going, you think, even though the American people are saying, enough, what are you getting done for me? You
know, what's important to note, Maria, is in October, support for impeachment was actually up. And where you've seen the drop most significantly is among independent voters who've actually reviewed the evidence, reviewed how Adam Schiff has conducted this hearing objectively, and have determined what the evidence shows. The President did nothing wrong. The President did nothing impeachable. In fact, the one thing we do know is that from the start, this has not been a fair process. There has not been due process. Do you know the President wasn't able to send attorneys to that hearing? Do you know that the Republicans were not able to introduce rebuttal evidence into that hearing? This was clearly a rigged process because the Democrats realized that the 2016 election was an outcome they could not really continue to allow to go forward without challenging it. And they know that in 2020, they're going to have a very hard time beating this president. The only place they could try to manipulate this process is in a hearing like that Adam Schiff unilaterally controls, which is unprecedented, by the way.
What happens now? It's supposed to go to the judiciary, but we don't know for sure. The Intel Committee might want more hearings, right?
Look, I think the one thing we do know is the Intel Committee failed to produce any fact or evidence that substantiates their central claims that the president did anything wrong to warrant impeachment, removal from office. We know that Republicans are very unified, both in the House and the Senate. The question now is, do they realize that the Judiciary Committee is another opportunity for them to potentially call other witnesses to try to salvage the failure of the Intel Committee and try to make some sort of evidentiary claim that you can impeach this president for basically having a phone call they may or may not have liked? The president's been transparent. He's been honest throughout this whole process as far as releasing the transcript. He's wanted nothing. We learned that from Ambassador Gordon Sondland, by the way, the only witness the Democrats called who actually talked to the president about this Ukraine aid. He wanted nothing. There was no quid pro quo. Ukraine got the aid without conditions. They got the meeting with both the president and the vice president without releasing the quote-unquote statement that people alleged was part of the quid pro quo. Clearly, we're at a better place with Ukraine. $400 million of lethal military aid that the Obama administration failed to deliver. I think overall, it's very clear that the Democrats have failed to make their case.
Is it more likely that the Democrats write articles of impeachment and send it to the Senate, and then the Senate has a trial, and in that case, the Senate may very well call people like Hunter Biden down and the whistleblower and Michael Horowitz? Or do you think it goes to the Senate and it's dead on arrival because they can't call these people that they want to call down?
I think the Democrats have made a colossal political miscalculation, and now they have two choices. One is to actually listen to the American people, listen to the probably 31 members of Congress who represent Trump districts or swing districts, who know that the American people would rather them work on lower drug prices, immigration, USMCA, infrastructure, instead of becoming hyper-focused on this hyper-partisan impeachment, and listen to them and actually figure out a way out of this mess for themselves and not bring forward articles. Or they're going to double down on their already failed strategy by moving articles out of the House. It'll go to the Senate, where we want a trial, because the president absolutely did nothing wrong. We have other witnesses we need to introduce to this conversation. We need to establish an actual factual record, Maria, that was never established in the rigged hearings that Adam Schiff and the rigged investigation Adam Schiff put forward. So we would welcome that opportunity.
You say the White House wants a trial. Is that a risky move when you look at some when you look at some Republicans who might be never Trumpers?
I'll tell you this. It's more likely, in our view, from a strategic perspective, that you'll get Democrats voting against impeachment than you will get Republicans voting for impeachment.
Yeah.
The Republican Party has never been more unified, and we have the facts and truth on our side.
Well, I know one is Jeff Van Drew from New Jersey, was on my show last Sunday. He said, I'm definitely voting no unless something else comes up that I hadn't seen before. And he said that other Democrat colleagues are voicing concern. We're not getting anything done. USMCA, prescription drugs, all the stuff that Peter Navarro listed yesterday in terms of things left on the table.
You know, we talk about the 31 Congress people in Trump districts. 13 of them are actually in districts that voted for John McCain, Mitt Romney, and Donald Trump. Those members are not representing constituents that want to see this president impeached on absolutely frivolous and fabricated charges. They want to see their representatives actually stand up for themselves, stand up for the constituency, do things like USMCA, drug prices, etc. You now have these members home for Thanksgiving. My assumption, Maria, is that the way democracy works is the people, the constituents, will let them know that this is a fool's errand to follow down Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi's path toward a hyper-partisan, unprecedentedly unsubstantiated, and ultimately pointless impeachment, because everyone knows the president will not be removed in the Senate.
Well, you're right. I mean, that is what I was saying earlier. Now they're going home from, to Thanksgiving to their districts. They're going to have to explain to their constituents what they've been doing for the last couple of months. We'll be watching. Tony, thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Tony Sayegh joining us there on impeachment. Coming up,